A thread by Pat Scopoliti. For December 2020, MAGA analysis. Hashtag restore the Constitution. Correcting a monstrous crime against our country. My friend and legal mentor, David Shostokis, provided this article and spent a bit of time with me speaking about it from renewamerica.com, a constitutional roadmap for conquering election fraud, Pat continues. Dave told me that its author, Publius Hulda, is one of the most trusted and respected authorities on all things constitutional. He encouraged me to go slowly with the article, contemplating each point carefully. That's what we're going to do together here. What's more, we're going to rebuild our constitutional reading skills while we're at it. As I started studying, I realized that I have never grown comfortable with the Constitution's format in reading it. I get it, but I've not spent much time doing it. Great news. The internet makes it so much easier than you might imagine. At this link, you can easily navigate to any section that Publius Hulda, PH, hereinafter, guides us to. You'll also see we really need to read it in context. Check this out from archives.gov, the Constitution of the United States, a transcription. Our story begins with Article 4, Section 4, with a clear statement of powers, responsibilities, and hierarchy of holding elections. If we're going to address this monstrous crime, we need to know exactly what the crime is and who committed it. PH points us straight there. The meaning of this is, quote, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, end quote. The breaching of that guarantee is the monstrous crime we face. We hear it all the time that this or that will destroy our republic. Perhaps we suffer from the boy who cried wolf syndrome and can no longer feel the dire, grim reality that we face. When I was on the phone with Dave Shostokis, I asked him about the strategy and tactics of doing something about this. What can we do, we citizens who want to take this seriously? He told me a story about walking through a group of 300 supporters to be a witness in court. After many hours, there were still about 50 or so people standing there simply to give their support. He was unable to find words to express the meaning and significance of that. I told him I understood. We turn right there. Now, listen to PH now. Quote, election fraud strikes at the heart of our constitutional republic. Therefore, Congress, the federal courts, and the executive branch, i.e., the United States, that's our list of players. Congress, the federal courts, the executive branch have the duty imposed by Article 4, Section 4, to negate the fraud in order to preserve our republican form of government. End quote. In essence, what we see here is the very first duty of each of these players. They must safeguard the republic, preserving it for us all, forever. In any endeavor, we must identify resources, match them against the needs of the mission, form a strategy, and establish tactics by which we execute the strategy. The example Dave gave us, people showing up at a federal court in support of our nation, is a perfect one. How do you get 300 people to show up outside of a federal court? That's both an informational and an organizational question. If you already have the resources of hundreds of people who both follow and care, a social media posting can handle the information challenge. I'm told that letters, emails, and phone calls to seat holders in Congress are vastly more impactful than most of us realize. My understanding is that the tally of where those calling in stand matters to a congressman toward winning re-election. Let's bump that up. Since I got started volunteering in 2016, I've learned that my telephone and networking skills can be nothing short of explosive in their impact when applied to a righteous mission. To put this to work yourself, Think in circles. I'll explain. The innermost circle is your ultimate target. In this case, your representative in Congress. It is usually, but not always next to impossible, to reach out directly. If you can, then do so. But most of us can't, and that's okay. The next circle is obviously those closest. There is almost always one or maybe two people that have complete and unhindered access, and let's say another 5 to 8 that are near that in varying degrees. You may not get much attention from any of those for two reasons. One, they really are very, very busy. The second is that they are gatekeepers and they take that job very seriously. They're there for the specific purpose of keeping you out. Well, that is, unless your message is both important and timely and rises to the level that gets you put through. The more research you can do on this second circle, the gatekeepers, the more powerful your strategy will grow. What you're looking for are called portfolios. Each person has many tasks, but they tend to fall into areas where that person becomes the in house expert. When you find a gatekeeper whose portfolio includes exactly what you're working on, you just found a potential friend and ally, and also a teacher. To the degree you bond with and are ready to learn, your new friend will teach you the ropes. Those are treasures. But what if you get nowhere with the gatekeepers? No problem. There is a third circle, often known disparagingly as hangers on. People take them for granted, but believe me, they're important. And if you really want to know details, catch one of these people. You'll be amazed. Often lonely and rarely recognized for all they do, a friendly voice and simple respect get you light years with these true patriots on any issue. There are always amazing experts in this third circle. While obviously the easiest to speak to, they have the least access. Again, no matter. It's the issue, the action, the legal or constitutional mandate you're pushing for that matters. When the mission is that important, internal politics can be overcome and even put to good use. A player in the third circle always has some access to players in the second circle, having broken in, set up a meeting. Zoom, Skype, telephone, or are always the best when possible in person. Meetings matter. The world runs on meetings. As an activist, you want a meeting of the minds. Let's return to PH's message and follow it from the federal down to the states level. We'll return to the executive branch in just a bit. PH tells us, as shown below, the states also have authority to remedy the election fraud committed in their state, end quote. Her first stop is once again Article 4, Section 4. Now, listen to who is not allowed to tinker with the process. Federal and state judges, federal and state agency. Who is allowed? Only state legislatures or Congress. I cannot too strongly emphasize how important that is. When these judges and agencies muck about with this, listen now, they must be stopped. That is a fantastic mission and one that any individual can grab hold of. If you have the time and means, go fight. On the other hand, state legislatures and Congress must do their job of safeguarding and protecting our republic. If you have the time and means, go fight for this and impose your will as a sovereign citizen that they do their job. What a wonderful phrase PH pulls out in her next point of study. Quote, in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct. End quote. As we've seen, this is both a mandate and a prohibition. The legislatures must do this. It disallows anyone else. The language sparkles with clarity. Let's talk about arguing for a moment. You're sitting with someone involved in an agency that has gotten their hands wrongly involved in this monstrosity. Clear statements are so powerful. You're not allowed by the Constitution to do that. The person talks about this, blah, 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 that, the same blather, never addressing your point. Okay, you say, I understand you feel all that is important, but the Constitution disallows you to do that. Doing that is a constitutional crime. You must stop. Oh, the attacks that will come now. You're not an attorney. You have no right to say that. You need to leave now. What they won't do is address the point. Of that, you can be assured. So, you need to leave a document stating what you have said, of course, keeping a copy yourself. Please understand, I do not always recommend such an explosive attack, but you have to be ready to go the distance. And, believe it or not, that's a huge part of why PH went to the effort to write this article and then command us to study. Can you feel the power of this? Carefully and slowly, you go through PH's entire article, just as we've begun here and will continue. You've been told that information is power, and it is. We should focus even more on knowledge and comprehension as power than we do. The Romans had an amazing concept for the place that PH is leading us. It was called imperium. And what it meant was, as a Roman citizen, you carried the entire force, might, and mean of the full empire itself. Wherever you may be, no Roman citizen may be mistreated anywhere. You might stare down a barbarian king and inform him that he may not so much as harm one hair on your head, or he will face the full power of Rome in retribution. Imperium was the knowledge of that power and the ability to bring it forward in action. We have the modern word patriotism, but I don't know that we've invested it with that kind of meaning. I don't know if we can either. I can tell you that my own patriotism forces me to do the things I do, and that it is my personal version of imperium. Does that make sense? Now, let us turn to studies more deeply. I say again, if you have not studied the Constitution, and especially as PH guides us in this article, you will not have imperium or that 100% empowered patriotism that only it may give. Confident action comes from confident thinking. There is a flow in all these parts that PH provides us. Article 2 requires that we know what's in Article 1. Its second and fourth clauses build on that knowledge, and they in turn lead to both the 12th and 20th Amendments of the Constitution. At this point, I have a question. Dave Shestokas, one can readily intuit the relationship between a constitutional framework and a statutory one. But I've learned that as a layman studying law, I must distrust my instincts. The meanings are often hard to truly follow. Here's a simple example. I'm reading PH's article, and it goes from one framework to the next and gives a link to the appropriate US code. Guess what? I've never really mastered what the US code actually is. A small amount of research brings me to the Wikipedia article, United States Code, link in the thread. And there I find this simple statement, quote, the official version of those laws not codified in the United States Code can be found in the United States statutes at large, end quote. Suddenly I'm a bit lost again. What is the difference between a law and a statute? I'm confused. And if there is a difference, well, they're obviously not synonyms. Why does our author provide both constitutional and statutory frameworks, but not a legal framework? Is that just usage in law speak? When I go to impose my imperium, things like that trip me up. So, Dave Shestokas, I await your guidance. In the meantime, tactics can give us a temporary answer. Nothing serves progress tactically like the strange combination of strength and humility. I know why I'm here. I'm strong. I don't know this, that, or the other. I need help. On my own, in order to get stronger and less ignorant, I'd start reading both history and analysis. That is, there is a story to the flow from Article 1 to Article 2 to Amendment 12 to Amendment 20. That is research. And let me tell you, when you know how, it's addictive. Within the stories, there are countless stories inside this story. Comprehension grows. Why did they do this? Who was fighting whom? Over what? Has the rationale been explained? And if so, who does the best job explaining it? A point about our author arises. In her self description, we are informed of this wonderful fact. She studies the Constitution itself, and then she ferrets out what it means and what its intentions are by studying the Federalist Papers. In fact, I'm going to show you where we played a little loose today. No, that's wrong. She doesn't play loose, although it felt that way to me at first. Rather, she moves fast, cutting me no slack. Notice, quote, the essence of a republic is that sovereign power is exercised by representatives elected directly or indirectly by the people. End quote. So there I am, reading and rereading the named section, and it says nothing like that. Back and forth until I finally notice the footnote. That's the actual answer. She's telling us that Federalist 10 helps us understand. Here's her quote. Quote, a republic, by which I mean a government in which the scheme of representation takes place. The two great points of difference between a democracy and a republic are, first, the delegation of the government, in the latter to a small number of citizens elected by the rest. End quote. Ha! There's a wonderful modern business term right there, and I can run with that. Delegation. Everyone in business knows you have to delegate. Everyone. Equally as well, everyone in business knows that when you delegate, you must also hold accountable. Delegation without accountability is an absolute formula for failure. Stick this out. It drops deep, fast. The mess this nation faces, the reason we must make it great again, is right there. We delegated the government to a small number of citizens. So far, so good. We're a republic. To whom we enforced zero accountability. Something I explain to all my clients is that while everyone knows accountability is critical, no one, or at least very few people, do it at all, let alone well. Also, there's a myth we must bust. Listen up. Accountability is not difficult. It's easy. It's just a meeting. I can teach you how to become a master of accountability in just these 3 easy steps. 1. You said you were going to do X, Y, or Z, etc., right? 2. So, what did you do? 3. Okay, what do we do now? Now, if you've never had that conversation before, the first time may be tough. A great mistake everyone in leadership suffers is this. The leader never has to have the answers. It's nice when they can help, but they can come in ignorant as can be. It's okay. The performer has the answers. They know what their jobs are. They know. But even if you do know the answers, it's far better to just ask and be silent and listen. Boom. This applies directly to protesting and activism for America. The small number of citizens empowered by delegation really do know their jobs. You can ask. Let's wind down for today. I'm going to call and bug Dave Shostokis, and our author gives us all the links for full homework completion. Probably most important is Federalist 10, which I will read by class time tomorrow for sure. Foundingfathers.info/Federalist Papers. We have the rest of PH's wonderful article, and oh, yeah, I just saw I have to read Federalist 78 as well. As I always say, there's no rest for the righteous. And get after it, get that homework done. Today's lesson ends at 60, but we'll pick up again tomorrow. No kidding. The more time you can find or steal to invest into homework, the more powerful your learning will be, and the mightier your resulting patriotic imperium in action.